But joining us on behalf of Shamrock Farms Rockin' Protein, everybody, is somebody who I greatly appreciate in terms of his 19 years in the league, and also seeing him talk about it and be about it and have an interesting broadcasting career in his own right that he's launching, in NBA champion Richard Jefferson. How are you doing, Richard?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. So you spent some time in the bubble, yay or nay?
Oh, yes, lots of time in the bubble. Lots of time in the bubble.
How long?
It was. I was there 40 days.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and it's funny though. Like, there were people that were there 100+ days. So there was no room for, oh man, I've been here so long. People would look at you and scowl. So I learned to kind of keep my amount of time in general population kind of to myself.
No, I'm not fully aware of what your drinking or eating habits might be. Was the coffee as bad as Jimmy Butler said it was in the bubble?
Look, I'm not a big coffee drinker,
right.
and Jimmy is, guys are connoisseurs. Some people are connoisseurs of wine and video games and coffee, and Jimmy is a coffee connoisseur. A lot of people know it. But I did discover Cuban coffee. We had some really good guys, a part of the crew, that were handing out Cuban coffee, and I had never had it before, and that stuff is intense.
Well, I'll tell you, I don't know if you had the same crew as maybe we did when we were down in South Florida for the Super Bowl, when they were serving us some Cuban coffee. And if anybody's ever had 5-hour energy, it's really 5-second energy when you have one of those.
Yeah,
oh my God!
It hits you. It hits you really quick, and you're like, I'm ready to take over the world. And
yes.
By the time you finish that sentence, you're like, I'm ready for a nap.
Yes, it was quite a roller coaster ride. When it happened. Wow. So, but in all seriousness, how difficult do you think it was to play? Obviously, playing basketball in the NBA is a privilege, but to do it in those circumstances, what was that like when you saw firsthand of what you saw, Richard?
Well, it was so eerie because I got there right as the conference finals started.
Yep.
And I remember the first time I got there and I go to the first game, I wanted to see an experience. And first of all, shout out to the NBA and ESPN and Turner. The setup was beautiful, right? It wasn't big, but it was like you could see it on TV, all the boards and the graphics and all that stuff. They did such a good job considering the situation. But I remember it was like the announcer goes, "Ladies and gentlemen, the Los Angeles Lakers." And the guys run out almost like it's a joke. They run out and they're like, "Hey, yeah." And it was like, if you saw, there was no like crazy intros. Guys weren't doing the 12 handshakes that they do. It was very like, let's get to business. And whoever handled that the best, and I'm not even saying the Lakers handled it the best, but of the good teams, I think the Lakers handled it the best, between the Clippers and the Bucks and even the Celtics. Those are the teams that if people had to pick like high-level teams that they thought would do better, I think it's because they just didn't handle the environment, and I think that's a compliment to the teams like the Denver Nuggets, like the Miami Heat, the Los Angeles Lakers, the teams that could kind of tweak their mentality to be like, hey, this is what it is. Who can handle this the best? Because ultimately, that's what any championship is about. It doesn't matter if it's college, high school, professionals, any sport. Who can handle the environment that they're in the best is typically the team that comes out on top.
Interestingly enough, Richard Jefferson here on the Rich Eisen Show, the Lakers did not handle it well at all when it was the, if you will, regular season portion of the bubble. It looked like they were sleepwalking through it, and then when the playoffs hit, it was winning time, to use the phrase that LeBron eventually used when it came to the Denver Nuggets. Another team, however, that did not handle it very well, one would say, based on results, you'd say the Milwaukee Bucks. Now, do you think it was the bubble or the fact that maybe their lead player is a Pippen? Richard, what do you think about that?
You're such a jerk. You're such a jerk for that, Rich.
No.
I love you. I'm joking. Look, two things. Let me say this. Two things. One, I think if I had one critique about the entire comeback schedule is that they took away every motivation for the top teams. The fact that those 8 games did not count towards possible home court advantage, did not count towards like regular season awards, right? So Giannis had nothing to play for. Bron and AD had nothing to play for. So you took motivation away from those players and those teams. So they were just kind of sleepwalking. There was like preseason games. And it didn't make sense to me because the points that you scored counted towards your regular season numbers. Right? So when Dame Lillard scored 60, he was the first person to score 63 times in a regular season since Wilt Chamberlain and James Harden. So that counted, but none of it counted towards the awards. So I think if it would have counted towards the awards, then Giannis would have been like, yo, I'm out here fighting for an MVP. If the Lakers go 8-0 and the Lakers have this record, maybe Bron gets more MVP votes. So Giannis and Bron and all these players, they really tried to tone it down. And then when it came to postseason, they weren't able to turn it up. Now, to my Pippen comment.
Yes.
People were very jumping on it. And, look, you can't really say things in 160 characters, but I stand by it. I think Giannis is one of the great players of this generation. He's so talented. But he is not the player to finish games for you. It's just not – it's like you can't shoot 60% from the free throw line and airball free throws. You can't not shoot a legitimate jumper or a legitimate three and think that you're going to be the individual that's going to finish and dominate games. Like, that's just not the reality of the situation. And LeBron James struggled with that early on in his career, not to the same extent, but just like he had to develop his jump shot. He said that against the Spurs after playing against them the first time, that he really needed to improve his jump shot. And you've got to shoot free throws well. It's like, look, Shaq is great, but Shaq also had Kobe. Shaq had D-Wade. Shaq had Pippen. And maybe I shouldn't have said that he is Pippen. He's probably closer to a version of Shaquille O'Neal that can be dominant for 46 minutes, but he needs a closer next to him. But you need a closer that can do it at a high level, right? Not just a guy that's like, oh, he's good in the clutch. It's like, no, you need a Jimmy Butler, Dame Lillard type player around him to finish it off.
No, and I understand what you said when you said it, Richard. And I'll be honest with you, it's not just because we share the same first name. I agree with you.
Yeah.
And that Pippen is still, and the way if it's just say he's a Pippen, not a Jordan, in 100 and, less than 280 characters, it does leave out the fact that Pippen is a top 50 NBA player of all time and is stellar in his own right. But when it comes down to it, Jordan was the guy who has the ball in his hands when it's time to win it. And if Giannis is not that guy, then it's a problem. So you are the perfect person to ask this question, because we on this show have had a little bit of an argument over the last couple of weeks. Certainly seeing what the Miami Heat have done and how they wound up the season. Would you break up the Heat to go get Giannis? Would you do that?
1,000%. 1,000%.
You would.
I'd break up the Lakers to go kick Giannis.
See?
So, but how do you square both of those statements though?
Well, this is what I'm saying though. Like when I say like Giannis, like it's not a disrespect when I was saying these terms and I was saying this stuff, as Rich, you know. What I'm saying is Giannis is still a top 2, top 3 player in the league, and that's 25 or 26 years old. You want that guy on your team. But it's just like every player has a formula. LeBron James needs shooters around him. He needs shooters around him and guys that can knock down shots because he creates offense. Magic Johnson and Jason Kidd and Steve Nash, these guys needed athletes around them. Shaquille O'Neal needed a late-game finisher around him, and he had that in all the players like we talked about earlier, whether it was Kobe or D-Wade. He needed that. That was the formula for him. Giannis has a formula, and the Milwaukee Bucks have not figured out that formula yet. And so, he's a great player, and I think if you had to break up, the Milwaukee Bucks, or if you had to break up the Miami Heat and you had to send Tyler Hero, you had to send Duncan Robinson, there's probably not a player on that roster that I wouldn't trade for Giannis. That's including Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo. Because you know where it goes? In my opinion, it goes to the same conversation. Now, I think the young players of the Miami Heat are better, but it goes to the same conversation that the Lakers had about giving away all of their young talent to go get Anthony Davis. I don't give a damn what Lonzo Ball, Brandon Ingram, Josh Hart. I don't care what any of those dudes are doing. You give me Anthony Davis, and I'm going to figure it out.
Yeah, but Lonzo and Ingram and everybody else who's now a Pelican never made the finals. I mean, Hero is 20. Adebayo is a stud. I mean,
Rich, the one thing that I'll say is this.
Yes.
From being in that bubble and to being there,
yes.
I am not surprised that a lot of young players had great breakout seasons in a confined area. Like Tyler Hero never had to go to Boston. I'm not saying Tyler Hero couldn't silence a Boston crowd. He showed us that he's got that kind of mentality, but there is something different about having to travel, having to go to opposing crowds and doing it for the first time in your life. If you've never experienced that and the booze and the hatred and all that stuff, that's just a different experience. So I will still say it. The Miami Heat are proven, but not completely.
All right. So how do you think it does shake out? Because the minute Giannis, if he does say no Supermax, the Bucks have got to ship him somewhere, right? So how do you think
I think, and what I'm hearing, this is not a quote from me, I think he's going to do similar things to what a lot of great players do, even what you look at what happened with the Clippers, where they'll do 2+1 or 1+1. Maybe he doesn't sign the 5-year deal. Maybe he says hey, I want 1+1, and you could keep re-upping, because what that does is that forces teams into the tax. The Milwaukee Bucks have to go into the tax. In the last 12 years, there's been 2 teams that have won the championship that weren't in the tax, or 3 teams, I think. One of the teams was the Warriors, but Steph Curry was on a team-friendly contract because he signed it early. And then the next time it was the Warriors with Kevin Durant, and the only reason why they weren't over the cap is because the salary cap had ballooned so big because of the Nike deal and the TV deal. But traditionally, the talent on that level was an over-the-cap team. So for the Milwaukee Bucks, if you want to keep Giannis, if you want to win a championship, there's a lot of different formulas, and one of the formulas is that you're going to have to spend money and go in the tax. And so when you do a 1-in-1 contract or a 2-in-1 contract, a shorter form, then the team now knows that they have to keep spending money in order to keep you. Because I don't care what that tax bill is. You know what's going to really affect them if Giannis leaves, because ticket sales, jersey sales, TV, all that stuff is going to be gone from the Bucks if he's not there.
Richard Jefferson, ESPN NBA analyst here on the Rich Eisen Show, and also on behalf of Shamrock Farms Rockin' Protein. Why'd you partner with these people, Richard?
Man, Rich, I grew up in Phoenix, Arizona, and that's where Shamrock Farms is, and that's where they have all their signs. And when they called me, and I've always been, even now going to the bubble, and I, try and stay in shape and try and work out, and people are like, "Oh, you look like you could still play," and it's like, no, it's really because I just enjoy working out. I enjoy training. I always have. Just even as a kid, I would just play outside all damn day, and trying to stay in shape, especially as I get older. There's so many protein drinks and protein shakes, and when I found this and already had a relationship with Shamrock Farms, it was kind of a no-brainer, being the hometown kid and being able to partner with something that, one, tastes great, 2, I already had a connection with growing up. And so, these are one of those things that, I used to drive by their big sign going to practice every day. And so to be able to work with a product that, I'm familiar with, I grew up with, that tastes great, that, actually has a function, every time you work out, even in any gym, any league, they tell you, make sure you get your protein, So it's quick, it's easy, it tastes great, man. And it's been really, really one of those cool things. I was like, yo, I get to endorse something after I retire.
That's great.
Kind of cool.
That is
kind of cool.
That's great. Shamrock Farms, Rockin' Protein. Richard, one last one for you before you go. I'm enjoying this conversation. I hope you are too.
Rich, whenever you want me on, man, you're my guy. I'll come in.
I appreciate you saying that, because you've been there, you've done that, and you shy away from nothing. So then, can you interpret Kyrie Irving's comments on that Et Cetera's podcast, where he said that for the first time in his career with Durant, he's got, let me get this quote correctly. I've got it right here. It just went away.
You don't have to get it.
His ability to deliver in this. It's called into question, his ability to deliver in the clutch. It seemed like the first time in his career. He said the best option that he said where I can be like that, MFer can make that shot too. Interpret that one.
It's weird. And Kyrie, I don't want to say took a step back. Kyrie said, look, I'm not taking shots. I'm not doing any of that stuff. But, Rich, how long have you been covering sports?
This is going to be my 25th year, sir.
Your 25th year.
Yes.
So you've watched MJ, you've watched Kobe, you've watched all these guys. Can you interpret that conversation?
Yeah. That he's either forgotten about LeBron James or he wants to make a point at LeBron's expense to talk about how much he loves being a teammate of Durant. Those are the two things that I would interpret.
Then you, because this is the thing. I respect individuals that have covered sports and watched sports, and you know more. Like, I was a kid watching the Bulls, but you were like covering them. You know as much as I do. Like, there's only a couple of ways that you can interpret it. Just because, like, I played with them and, and I get it. It's like we all read it and watch it, and we're just like, there's only a couple of ways to take this, and none of them are good. None of them are good. But I don't think Kyrie, sometimes, like, all of us, we say things and we mention things in a moment, and we don't, like, fully look at it in a way like he was trying to give his teammate a compliment, but it was taken as a diss to somebody else. I don't think anybody in the world thinks that, LeBron James can't make that shot. It's been proven too many times over the last 2 decades. So I just think that, I think in an effort to compliment somebody, it was taken, I don't want to say out of context. I'm just going to say it put focus on somebody else, and I don't think that was his intention.
Richard, thanks for the call. Let's chat again real soon. I really appreciate you offering to come on anytime. We're going to take you up on that. That's for sure.
All right, you take care of my guy TJ too, man. You take care of my guy TJ. TJ, I hope you're doing well, man.
TJ,
what's up, brother?
TJ, now again, I don't want to take it out of context, but by him saying that, is he implying I'm not taking care of you?
I think he's
yes, 100%.
I'm just saying. Have you given Richard Jefferson the impression?
I have not. I think he just wants to make sure that everything's copacetic. That's
okay.
all.
Yeah.
My man.
Wait, TJ, you still a Bears fan?
No, that was Kutcher. I'm the Cowboys fan.
Oh, no. Oh, the Cowboys fans. You know what? I just remember sitting there and watching you just moan about your fantasy football league, and it was just, But again, I knew it was a long-standing, disgusting team, and it had to either be the Bears or the Cowboys. So, okay, I wasn't too far off. I knew it was somebody. You doing all right after the Dak injury?
I'm telling you, man, I was numb. I was numb till about Wednesday. It was terrible to see.
Sorry, Rich. I'm sorry that this is now the Richard Jefferson show.
No, it's
interviewing TJ Jefferson.
It's quite all right.
It's the Jeffersons. We're moving on up.
It's quite all right. Like LeBron, I'm able to pass it off to the open man and hope he hits the shot, Richard.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for having me. Seriously, anytime you guys want.
You got it. That's Richard Jefferson, again, on behalf of Shamrock Farms Rockin' Protein. You like that video? Of course you did. Check out more right here.